Sorry, that a quick intro always gets everybody. They're ready to roll. This is Coach Schuman. Welcome to the Success for Life podcast. I'm here with Kevin Palmieri. We're really excited to talk to him on a couple of levels. He does some interesting and exciting things that just fits right in with what we talk about on the Success for Life podcast. He literally is creating success every day with his Next Level University. He has a fantastic podcast that covers all of those things, trying to improve your life and in every facet of it, business, love, health, success, everything associated with that. He's covering those bases. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, Coach. Yeah, the quick intro got me, but I'm ready to roll and I'm excited to chat. Thank you for having me on.
I don't know why it doesn't just automatically just loop right in. It has that brief time period where tenth of a second.
No worries. Keep me on my toes. I like it.
That's it. Well, tell everybody your background, where you come from, how you got to this point, and so everybody gets a little educated on that.
Yeah. I was raised in a small town. I was raised by my mom and my grandmother, and I didn't actually meet my father until I was 27 years old. All of my friends after high school went away to college, and I just job hopped for most of my life. And I ended up getting a very, very good job in the weatherization industry. So just think construction is the best way to think about it. I found what quote unquote was success to me, and I still ended up sitting on the edge of a hotel bed debating suicide because I was so out of alignment, so miserable, so stuck, so hopeless. And I ended up leaving all that behind and getting into the podcasting, speaking, coaching thing full time. And here we are 5 years later, 1,000 episodes, and it's definitely been an interesting journey to say the least.
1,000 episodes. That's unbelievable.
Thank you.
I mean, I thought I did a lot at 140 here. So
it is a lot. That is a lot.
Yeah.
I always tell people, Coach, I don't know that everybody should get to where we are. Because you know what I mean? There's been so many ups and downs and so many pain points. And for us, it's a lot bigger than just the show. So I think 140 episodes is further than most people make it. So give yourself a pat on the back, please.
Yeah, well, I have 100 and something on another podcast where I focus on my sports area.
There you go.
And so we've done a lot. It is interesting. We try to break it into seasons, and so we don't overwhelm everybody all the time. But it's a ton of fun, and I get to speak with great people like yourself. So tell me a little bit more about that road. So you grew up in and if you don't mind talking about it, grew up in a broken home, okay, where you didn't see your father till you were an adult. What are some of the things growing up in that environment that you think has impacted both your journey and then ultimately helping you to arrive at success?
Yeah, it's interesting because I often have asked, we've had psychotherapists and therapists and counselors on our show. And one of my questions always is, how do you know if your normal is normal? And then we go down that road of, well, nothing is normal. Everybody has different experiences. So for me, I think a couple things. One, I think that gave me the identity of somebody who is ambitious. I don't think I'm naturally hungry for success or hungry for achievement, but I think that for most of my life, I had a pretty big chip on my shoulder. And that is something that I've been able to pivot from negative to, I would say, constructive. So I think that's part of it. One of the things that really has always stood with me is our lack of money growing up. We didn't have a lot of money. I never wanted for anything. I never went hungry, but we often talked about how we were going to be able to pay rent. My family's never owned a house. We've always rented. So that has always been part of me and my story. Now, this is the interesting thing, Coach. When I was 27, I was going through my Facebook messages. And I didn't know that if you had somebody that messaged you that you weren't friends with, it went to a different folder. And I was going through that folder for some reason. I don't know what I was doing, but I remember seeing a message and it said, "Hey, Kev, I'm blank. I'm your father's girlfriend." And I remember when I saw that, I said, "Oh, no. I can't do this today. I cannot do this today." And I ended up going through the message, and it basically said, "Hey, I'm your father's girlfriend. He's seen what you're doing on Facebook. He wants you to know that he's very proud of everything you've done and would love to meet with you if that's something you're open to." And I remember I fell on the floor, I threw my phone on the floor, and I just started crying. Because for most of my life, I had villainized this person, and I said, I don't care if he's alive, I don't care if he's dead, I don't care how he's doing, but I never thought I was going to have the opportunity to actually see him So this raised that opportunity for me, and I actually ended up in going and seeing him, which was this very powerful thing for me that really closed that circle, I think.
Yeah, I think, I grew up in a little different environment, but I grew up in a broken home. So I understand what that's like. And a little bit, everybody's situation is completely different. I identify with not being able to pay for the lights and not be all those kind of things.
Mm.
And went through it myself as a kid. But I think that really, I try to see the positives and the things that come from that. I was lucky that my father was around the whole entire time, even though the parents were divorced, which I think was obviously very helpful. But you do feel that void, you feel that chip on your shoulder. And then I said, one of the things, I was a very good football player, a very good athlete. The outlet that you need to have, and I'm going somewhere with this, so stay with me. The outlet that you need to have as a person to be able to take that chip on your shoulder and put it into a positive avenue is so important. And it's incredible that you've figured that out. Obviously, a lot of it is true credit to yourself and being able to do that. But that road is tough. You do get through a lot of emotions. You could be the most positive, best looking, great athlete, all those things, everything on the outside, right? But on the inside, you feel some void, and that's a hard thing, right, for a lot of people. And to be able to then transition that into something positive is such an important thing, and it resonates with so many people. We're in a society today that you're talking upwards towards 70% divorce rate of families, right?
Mm.
So that means that 7 out of every 10 family in America has some sort of thing going on. Not everybody has it as bad as others. Some have it better, but that void it's inevitable. And people don't understand that who haven't been through it. But to be able to channel that in a positive environment is so important. And you have done that. You're an example of that. Tell people how you really went from that environment, of lack to fulfillment, and really particular because you said you were starting to see some success, money, right? Some money, and but it wasn't all there. You were on the borderline of suicide. How did
Mm.
you transition that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure you've heard this quote. Everybody hears it. Everybody says that money doesn't buy happiness, but we all want to find out for ourselves, right? So, to your point, Coach, I made $100,000 at 26 with no college degree, just pure grinding. That was all it was. It was just brute force. And what really shifted for me is when I opened my pay stub, I realized that nothing inside of me changed. I thought that that money was going to fix the void that you spoke of. I thought it was going to make me more confident. I thought it was going to raise my self esteem. And I think most importantly and most deeply, I thought it was going to help my self worth. And it didn't. It actually made all those things worse because now I have all this money and I still feel as bad, if not worse, than I did before. So I think for me, finding quote unquote success, realizing that's not actually success, it gave me two things. It gave me the opportunity and it gave me the permission to start working on myself. I had worked so much on my life, but I never worked on my own self improvement. And when people say self improvement, that's what they're saying. They're saying improving self. I never did that. I improved circumstances. I helped others improve, but I never poured into my own cup. So that is the biggest thing that shifted for me is I think a lot of people assume it's selfish to work on yourself. But I tried to put myself first. I tried to say, you know what? If I want to have a better life, I have to become a better human, more capable, a more well rounded, a more holistic, a better communicator, better with money, better with love, better with everything. And I think for me, it actually allowed me and gave me permission to do that because I realized that, yes, the money is great, but money only fixes monetary problems. It does not fix internal problems. So the best thing that ever happened to me was me finding success wasn't actually my own version of success.
What are some of the fundamental things that you did working on yourself to start to fill those voids? And look, I say this all the time. Um, it is a continuous process. I think the mistake people make is that they think, okay, I worked on these things. I started to see some improvement. You're going to go back if you don't work at it. It is no different than practicing football, hitting the tennis ball. Like, if you want to get great at it, you've got to do it over and over again. What are some of the things that you did that was successful for you?
Yeah, the first thing I ever did was I started asking why. When something would happen to me, I would react a certain way and I would ask, okay, why? Why am I reacting? Why did I get insecure? Why did I have an ego flare there? Why was I afraid of that? Why was I excited for that? Why am I afraid? I remember that I had a very interesting conversation with one of my friends. I don't know if it was on the podcast or not, but we were talking about the bar. And I said, I don't like the bar at all. I hate going to the bar. And I never understood why until I dug into it. And I realized, well, somebody like me does not have a high level of value at the bar. I'm 5'4" on a good day. I'm not going to stand out in a crowd of people. If I'm going to the bar to meet a woman, that's probably not going to happen because they're not going to see me. They're going to see everybody else. That's just not where I prosper. That's not where I flourish. Where I do flourish is one-on-one conversations with people that are meaningful. And that all started from a place of, okay, somebody asked me if I want to go to the bar. My initial reaction was no, I don't ever want to go to the bar. Why? Is it because I don't like the bar? I don't like loud music? No, it's because I feel insignificant there and it hurts my confidence. So I would say that was the number one thing I started doing, was asking why. And I would say the second thing that has made the biggest difference for me is I started tracking my habits. If you're an athlete, you probably track your workouts. You are an athlete in life in terms of your own performance. So I started tracking my habits. I think I started with 5 things a day. Now I'm up to like 20 things a day. And that makes sure that I'm on path, I'm on purpose, I'm in alignment with the ultimate goals that I'm aiming for.
What habits did you have to work on? Well, I mean, you're at the 20 now. What are the first 5 that you really had to work on that was important?
Yeah. I think this was probably 3.5, 4 years ago. So one of them was every day I'd weigh myself. Every day I would meditate. Every day I would track my finances. Every day I would post on social media, and then every day I would message a prospective client. That is literally where I started. If you think back, it's kind of health, wealth, and love. I mean, that's how we have it set up now, but back then that wasn't the intention. But yeah, I've always been a pretty consistent person, but I didn't always have the awareness of what to do. I'm a really good operator. I'm really good at the day-to-day, give me a list of things and I'll do them, but I don't always have the awareness of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And until I have that, it's hard to be consistent. So I would say those are the places I started, and then it just it really elevated from there and evolved.
And how quick can someone starts today, they start, working on some of the things within themselves, picking up those habits that are helpful, being consistent. How long does it take for them to start to transition? And now I understand everybody's different, but
yeah.
How long can you expect to start to feel like, hey, I'm making some headway here?
Yeah, I think to your point, and obviously it depends on the circumstances, but I think when it gets to the point where you would rather do it than not do it, that's it. You cross this interesting bridge. And I said this the other day to our group coaching group. I said, I promise you all have been tracking for 3 months. So at this point, everybody in that group has been tracking their habits every day for 3 months. I said, you're coming up on the point now where it will be easier for you to do these habits than to not do them. You will have to have a conversation with yourself and say, you know what? I'm just not going to do that today. So I would say probably like 2 weeks, you can start to feel a little bit something. You can feel momentum. Your self-worth and your self-esteem might be a little higher because you're keeping small promises to yourself. A month is when you can really start to see things. 3 months, I think it helps. Like, you're at the point where it might be leaking into your identity because your behaviors are all different, and then a year and then 3 years. Yeah. So I would say like a week, 2 weeks, a month is kind of the sweet spot where you'll start to see stuff.
Well, there's got to be a muscle memory to it, almost to an extent, right? So, and your brain starts to say, "Hey, I need to do this. This is part of my routine. This is part of me getting to where I need to be." And you got to. I think it's an interesting thing that my father once told me. So, growing up, his father was gone, and he really was always trying to figure things out. Was naturally very smart, but didn't do any work. Right, kind of plodded along for a very, very long time. Went to college, plodded along there. Took forever to get through college, and then he was in ROTC, and he got into the military. Okay, when he got into the military, it wasn't that he loved the military, but it was what the military gave him. It was now, he had to be structured. He had to do habits every single day. And what was interesting is when he went back to grad school, instead of being a C student, he was a straight A student, right? He picked up the habits that are necessary in order to be disciplined. And he learned, that was the number one thing he always told me he learned in the military. It was that he picked up the habits to be consistent every single day, doing the things that he needed to do every single day, and having some level of structure. Obviously, in the military, there's a ton of structure to it, but you need to have some level of structure every single day. Where do you think, what are some of the foundations that people can do to form some structure that works for them?
Yeah, I think the number one thing, and this was the through line of that story, there has to be some level of necessity. In the military, either you become consistent or you become gone. Really, I mean, that's the way it works, right? So there has to be a high level of necessity. So what you often see with behavior change is somebody will have a heart attack or something bad will happen. They'll go to the doctor and the doctor says, look, you have to change all of these things. And then people start living what is kind of their second life. Well, it's because they have necessity now. You see somebody who gets into a car accident and they have their life flash before their eyes. They have the necessity to say, oh, wow, everything could have been over here. So number one, you have to create some sort of necessity. So the example I like to use is if I want to run, so say I want to get to the point where I'm running 15, 20 miles a day. Two ways to do it. One, I say, okay, I want to get to the point where I'm running 15 or 20 miles a day. Or sign up for a marathon. If you sign up for a marathon, you have to run 20 miles eventually. You have to run 5, 10, 15, 20 miles. And it's one of those things where you know that if you do not do the things consistently, when you show up on that day, you're most likely going to fail. So that's one of the big things, is make sure you have a decent level of necessity. The other one is accountability. So my co-host and I, we were on an episode, I don't know, 3 months ago, however long ago it was. And we said, you know what? We've been slipping on our fitness. Neither of us are happy where our fitness is. We're living below our standards. We both want to lose 10 pounds. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to tell every single one of you that if we do not reach our goal weight by August 1st, we do not get to record an episode. If I reach my weight and Alan doesn't, I'll be here solo. If Alan does and I don't, he'll be here solo. If neither of us make it, there will be no episode, and we've never missed. So there's that public accountability. Now, obviously, not everybody's going to do that because that takes a decent level of self-belief, but find somebody in your life that can help you be more accountable, whether it's a peak performance partner, whether it's a group, whatever that may be. That's one of the things is we have a 16-person team, and everybody can see everybody else's habits. So I know David didn't do this today, right? And I also know that David can see everything I'm doing. So as a leader on the team, I want to be consistent. I want to lead by example. So that just speaks to the public accountability as well.
Yeah, I love that scoreboard mentality, meaning you got to figure out what is the right scoreboard and how you're tracking that. It's not as simple as a sports game or always going to run a marathon, right? That's a direct something that you can really leverage. But you have to have some scoreboard that you're using, because otherwise, it's just easy. We all understand that especially today's age with the gamification of everything, right? So we all understand a scoreboard, and giving yourself some scoreboard that you can see it. And, it starts to make you feel good after a certain point. You start to realize that. All right, let's kind of transition. I want to talk a little bit about your podcast and your coaching. So 1,000 episodes is in a tremendous amount of episodes. What are the things that you're trying to accomplish in your podcast? There's a lot of people that are trying to be podcasters like you. What are some of the things that you try to accomplish each day that has made you very successful in that podcasting area?
Number one is I try to build real, authentic, valuable relationships with people. I mean, I know our listeners at the deepest level. I've talked to them about breakups. I've talked to them about abuse. I've talked to them about their lives. So I know our listeners at a very deep level. I believe that's one of the most important things that I can do every day is talk to somebody in the community. So that is one thing I do every single day. But I think it's interesting because, and I say this often when I go on shows, and this is a new level of awareness for me. I don't believe that most people should try to do what we're doing unless they're doing it for the same reason. So we're trying to bring holistic self-improvement to the masses. I mean, I love podcasting, do not get me wrong, but I didn't do 7 episodes a week because I love podcasting. It was more for the understanding of, I want to make sure we're adding consistent value to our community. I want to be there every single day because every day is an opportunity to get better. So that's the other thing is, I mean, we do an episode every single day where no matter where you are in the world, no matter how much money you have, if you have access to a cell phone or the internet, you can listen to a podcast that's focused on helping you get better. And that really is the mission for us. And we want to do it holistically. A lot of people can teach you how to do sales and make more money, or there's a lot of fitness podcasts out there, but there aren't a lot of podcasts who do all of it. And we're trying to lead by example by doing it all, which is the most humbling thing maybe on the planet, but that is what we signed up for, and I'm happy and I feel a responsibility to do that.
That's very cool. And then monetizing your podcast. Now, obviously, coaching is one area that you do that. What are some of the ways that you found, and this is really just to help a lot of podcasters out there. For me, my Successful Life podcast is almost like a give back because my other podcast is what leads to my business in the football space, right? Mm-hmm. What have you done that have really been successful for you from a monetization standpoint?
Yeah, so everything for us runs through the podcast and everything is pretty much coaching. So we've had sponsors reach out. We're not interested. We don't want to do sponsorships. We sponsor ourselves. So whether it's one-on-one coaching, group coaching, retreats, live events, online courses, that really for us is the name of the game, because when you're building a business from a podcast, you have to figure out, number one, who is your listener base? So not all of our listeners have a lot of money. Okay, cool. You can listen to the podcast every day. If you've never had a coach and you want one, we can do group coaching. It's cheaper, right? And then one-on-one's a little more expensive. And then as you move down the business, things get more expensive. But yeah, it's for us, it's one-on-one coaching or coaching in some aspect. And then we have other parts too, where we do like social media. We have a podcast division. We have a website division. So everything that we needed, we kind of have built a business around. That way we can make sure we can serve our community and anybody else who's trying to do what we're doing.
I think what you nailed there is very important. I've always done it the same exact way. And in the past, I had taken on some sponsors, and you know what? If it doesn't exactly align what you're trying to do, so if you have your own, as an entrepreneur, not as a quote unquote media company, I don't think of myself as a media company. I think of myself as an entrepreneur. That's my business. So if I give business away to another group, it doesn't always fall in line. And I always found that if you're a media company, that works. If you're building a business, that creates confusion in the marketplace, right? Yep. Should I go to him or should I go to them, right? Who is the person that I go? Who's the person of authority when you take that money from a sponsor? Ultimately, you can make a lot more financial gains from being able to utilize what you know and what you do and build the business from that, which is what you've done. And that's, I think, an important lesson for people to understand. There's a short-term fix, which is sponsorship, unless you are truly a media company where that is what you're doing. Yeah. The long-term fix is entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
Very well said. Agree with that?
100%. I don't know if I could have said it better than that. As you were saying it, I was literally thinking, yeah, ads are a short-term for most people, because it's not building up your brand and it's not building up your credibility. And this is the deeper level too. It doesn't create the necessity for you to get creative. Like when we started this, I had no idea how we were going to make money, and I didn't start it for the money. So everything that we've created has been very organic. Of what I think a lot of people do is they go to supply first. They don't recognize demand. We just recognized demand and said, okay, cool. Now we can create the supply. I think a lot of other people say, well, I'm going to just create a bunch of supply and hope demand comes. And that's just not the way to build a business usually.
No, that's 100% correct. What and I know I got to be cognizant of your time here. I want to make sure that people get an understanding of what they can go and take away from this podcast from you. If they can take one great nugget away and say, "Hey, this is what I should start doing tomorrow." Okay, what should they start doing?
So number one, I would give the quote, the biggest difference between who you are and who you want to be is your habits. So I would say this, depending on where you are in the journey, you can start with one habit or two habits under health, under wealth, under love. So one habit under health, when you wake up tomorrow, weigh yourself. That's it. That's all you got to do to start. Raise your awareness. Under wealth, track your finances. How much money do you have in your bank account tomorrow when you wake up? Do the same thing the next day and the same thing the next day. And then one for love, if you're in a relationship, before you go to bed tonight or tomorrow, whenever you listen to this, play the gratitude game with your partner. So before you go to bed, say one thing that you're grateful for about your partner. Have them say one thing back to you. If you're single and you don't have a partner, you can do the same thing with yourself. You can just say, I am grateful for blank in my life. Or figure out what is a cup filler for you. Maybe it's taking a bath. Maybe it's yoga. Maybe it's reading with candles lit. Those three little habits can build something quite nice in the future. That is you building your foundation. And then when you're ready to level up, you can add another one under health, another one under wealth, and another one under love.
That is fantastic stuff.
Thank you, my friend.
Really, really great. Tell everybody where they can find you, how they can get in touch with you, how they can listen to your podcast, and if they want, if they want your coaching and starting to find out more about it. I'm sure the podcast is the place to start.
Yes.
But obviously, let everybody know where they can get in touch with you.
Thank you. I always say listen to the podcast. So Next Level University, we are on all the major podcast platforms as well as YouTube, 7 episodes a week. And then you can follow me on Instagram at NeverQuitKid. Any questions or anything you need, please do not hesitate to DM me. And yeah, the podcast is the best place. You'll learn everything you need to know and you can find everything through the podcast.
Kevin, fantastic stuff.
Thank you, buddy.
I really appreciate you coming on for Success for Life podcast. Listen, make sure you're taking notes today. Kevin Palmieri gave us some great nuggets from Next Level University. We'll see everybody soon on the Success for Life podcast. Thanks for being on, Kevin.
Thanks, Coach.